LSU is bringing back DBU. For years, LSU went uncontested in using the DBU moniker when talking LSU secondary. Things have slipped, though, a little the past few years, but a familiar face, Corey Raymond, is back in Baton Rouge this offseason, and recruiting is already heating up. We're going to break it all down in this video. I got LSU insider Shea Dixon on today. A lot to cover, but first, LSU fans, tap in, hit subscribe to the On3 Recruit channel, not because I was the first to predict Bryce Underwood to LSU, but because you love recruiting, right? So hit subscribe, but also because I did predict Bryce Underwood. All right, let's bring on Shea Dixon from the Bengal Tiger, and over the weekend, the Tigers add to their already #1 ranked recruiting class in 2025, with another elite addition. As you can see, Bryce Underwood, #1 overall, but this weekend they added cornerback Jabori Antone, another top 50 prospect, number 45 overall, so another borderline 5-star. Now, Antone was at the Cajun Bash over the weekend, number 45 prospect overall, #2 in the state. So Shea, how did this one go down? How did they lock him down?
Yeah, look, Jabori's a kid coming out of Louisiana at Westgate, Josh, who he had offers from the who's who of college programs. When you're a top 5 corner nationally, that comes with the territory. But it was brewing as a Texas LSU race. And he had visited Texas for junior day just a week ago prior to his commitment to LSU. I know the Longhorns had held some confidence, but LSU had put in a lot of work behind the scenes to kind of set this up to where he felt comfortable shutting things down when he visited. Then you had the hire of Corey Raymond, which he described as icing on the cake. And a connection here, Corey Raymond, longtime coach, as you said, it's been 10 years straight at LSU before spending a couple of years in Gainesville, is back now. He's a New Iberia native. Antoine's a New Iberia native. So they're familiar with each other. He had recruited him at Florida as a future guy in this 2025 class. I think everything sort of came together with the groundwork LSU had laid, and then the new coach in Raymond coming in, knowing he got a multi-year deal. That makes an underclassman like this feel good about the future. His coach will be there. So this is about as big as it gets, Josh, because he is the #2 recruit in Louisiana, and we know Louisiana is one of the deepest states in the country when it comes to high-profile recruits. So they knocked down Harlan Berry, the #1 player in the country, or excuse me, running back in the country, but #1 player in Louisiana. Now they get the #2 player in Antoine.
Yeah, and really improving that in-state recruiting. I remember when Brian Kelly arrived, they lost out on 6 of the top 10 players in the state. Last year, they grabbed 9 of the top 10 players in the state. This year, already the top 2 players in the state committed to LSU. They're cooking. All right, let's take a look at those top DB targets, starting here with DJ Pickett. Now, Corey Raymond actually has a great relationship with DJ Pickett because he's from Zephyr Hills High School, which is only about 30 minutes from UF, where Corey Raymond was coaching previously. And DJ Pickett made a ton of visits to UF while Corey Raymond was there. Do you think that helps LSU chances at all?
Absolutely, and you're educating us. See, most LSU fans listening to this are not from St. Pete. They don't know the lay of the land. Where Zephyr Hills would even be, and that's one word, which is surprising as well. But yes, I think big time, because we had not heard them mention a guy like DJ Pickett yet, and he's the #1 safety in the country. But whenever Corey Raymond moves over to LSU from Florida, he immediately went out and offered or re-offered, however you want to describe it, a lot of those guys at LSU. And Pickett is the first one who says, all right, I'm ready to go ahead and lock in a visit. He's made a number of visits here recently, but he will be at LSU this week. That's big time, immediately seeing kind of some dividends paying off on the recruiting trail by getting the #1 prospect at safety in America onto campus. Now, the big 3 in Florida have been after him. I know Florida's kind of been a leader on the On3 RPM. Michigan's in this race. He was going to go see Oregon. So he's a guy who, obviously, being a #1 player, will get recruited coast to coast. But to make a hire as a secondaries coach with a guy like Raymond, to know that they have that prior relationship, I think will be a big deal, at least in terms of kind of getting into this race, and then if they're able to maintain any sort of foothold in it.
Yeah, I did not know that DJ Pickett was visiting LSU this weekend. So we're going to talk to you on Monday coming out of that to see what happened. But yeah, I knew he was going to make it to campus soon, but I didn't know it was going to be that soon. So DJ Pickett, #1 safety, will be in Baton Rouge this weekend. All right, let's move to the corner position, talk Dorian Brew. Now, some LSU fans, that name may sound familiar. It's because Dorian Brew's father, Derek, was a track star at LSU. Now, Dorian is a legacy prospect, but Shea, it seems like there's competition. This isn't a slam dunk, is it?
No, Ohio State's been considered the front runner here and pretty heavily favored to land Dorian Brew, who checks in as the number 3 corner on the On3 industry rankings. So a guy who's very highly thought of. Corey Raymond has already been in touch with them now as the secondaries coach and kind of one of the top corner targets in this class. You've added Antone. You'd like to now continue to add others. I will say, though, that Ohio State, yes, Josh is the team out front. He's also a kid from Conroe, Texas. So there is some, proximity wise, LSU isn't far off. He's able to visit here soon. So, yes, I would keep an eye on Dorian Brew, a guy that the LSU staff, much like with Pickett, now can suddenly find themselves in the mix for because they've made a hire like Corey Raymond. But again, let's not get our hopes up too high, considering that most people feel like the work Ohio State's done has put them in a pretty advantageous position.
All right. Another one that Corey Raymond has his hooks in on is Fakhim Delaney. Now, we went from the number 1 safety in the country in DJ Pickett to the number 2 safety in the country in Fakhim Delaney. Now, he's from the DMV, but Shea, he's been to campus before, right?
He's been to campus a couple of times, and they've recruited. Look, they got Deshaun Womack, a 5-star out of Maryland here recently. Now they're back up there recruiting a guy like Delaney, who, out of good counsel, obviously is a pretty highly a lot of kids have come out of that program, turned out highly ranked prospects. Yeah. You look at him, though, he's one that when Corey Raymond got hired, when Jake Olson got hired at safeties coach, that was very active on social media and in interviews about that sort of boosting LSU stock, a school he was already interested in. Now, again, Ohio State's in the mix, Penn State's in the mix, Virginia Tech's been hanging around. So the schools kind of up there have sort of kind of spearheaded things, but LSU is going to be able to recruit nationally, and DB is a spot that if you find a guy that you like, they'll certainly stay in the mix as long as he's willing to say, hey, I'm going to come down and visit and do all these different things. And so far, we've seen that from him. Like I said, multiple visits already, and he said he's going to be back this spring. So nice to have at least your foot in the door with guys who are ranked number 1 and 2 at the position.
Yeah, speaking of visits, cornerback Gregory Xavier Thomas, he was down at the Battle 7-on-7, one of the top performers down there over the weekend in what is really the country's first big 7-on-7 of the offseason. Well, anyway, he told recruiting analysts over the weekend that he plans to be at LSU this weekend for a visit. Now, he's at American Heritage High School where, that's one of the places where they just breed DBs down there in South Florida. What are you hearing on Gregory Xavier Thomas and his recruitment to LSU?
Another one where it's no surprise to see Corey Raymond involved here, right? I mean, even when he wasn't at Florida those 2 years, they recruited American Heritage heavily. They have American Heritage kids on the team over the years. Obviously, Pat Surtain would be a kid that from a Heritage as a number 1 corner that Raymond at his prior LSU stop was on heavily before he ended up at Bama. And now you kind of, like you said, they're going to churn them out every year. So every year you're going to go down to IMG, to Heritage, to try to stay present in Florida with defensive backs. And look, 6'2", 185, that kind of fits the bill of what Corey Raymond usually looks for in corners. And he wasn't the only one. When Corey Raymond first got on the road, Josh, to go recruit for LSU, he, as I said, re-offered a lot of guys, whether they already held offers from LSU or kind of were recruited by him at Florida. But he wasn't the only one. Shamar Kandi, Rakeem Stroud, Tony Williams, all of these guys out of Florida who are in this 2025 class got re-offered by LSU as soon as Raymond got here. So Antone starts the dominoes, right, for a class that already ranks number 1 in 2025 as that first corner addition. But Raymond is quickly going back to these guys he recruited while at Florida because you're recruiting a lot of the same guys. There's crossover there. He already had found guys, hey, I'm high on these guys in 2025. And it didn't take long for him to kind of reach out to them and say, now that I'm at LSU, you've got a spot, I'm going to turn up the heat. And now we're starting to see, as you noted, visits are lining up already with 2 of the guys we mentioned coming this week to campus. So with Antone committing 2 visitors this week, it feels like things are kind of happening in a hurry at DB.
Yeah. And just last thing I want to ask you about the DB position. Does it feel different when Corey Raymond returns to LSU? Does recruiting at the defensive back position kind of get a spark when Corey Raymond returns to Baton Rouge?
I could probably sum that up by answering that the Corey Raymond edition was one of our most read articles of the past year on Run
Okay,
3, at least
there you
for
go.
Tigers. So, yes, a familiar face. It's a lot like when Frank Wilson came back, right? It's someone that they know as an LSU coach, that they know understands the kind of expectations at LSU. If you're talking about Raymond, it's DBU. If you're talking about Frank, it's the totality of the program, the importance of in-state recruiting. And also, you have to remember, Corey Raymond went to LSU. He's
Yeah.
from Louisiana. He began his coaching career here. Whenever the Orgeron era ended and Brian Kelly arrived, he was the longest tenured coach on staff at more than a decade straight as LSU's DB coach, despite teams often trying to get him, pry him away from Baton Rouge. They obviously shipped things up right when he got here, but it didn't take long, 2 years for Brian Kelly to say, hey, look, let's bring Corey Raymond back. Name him the secondaries coach, and yes, it was pretty well received.
Yeah, well, I sent you the photo of Corey Raymond jogging across the field in Florida Gator gear, going to shake the hands of the LSU coaches, and I said it just had big Joe Montana vibes, like when he was on the Kansas City Chiefs. Though it just didn't look right, but now everything's back in alignment. Corey Raymond coaching DBs at LSU. Couldn't be at a better time because, Shea, you guys got some big junior days coming up. Bengal Tiger will be the place to be. You guys do a great job covering these. Going to be an exciting weekend. Shea, thanks for dropping by the Inside Scoop today.
Thanks for having me on, Josh.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed that content, be sure to subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. We have a new page dedicated only to recruiting. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now.